You're walking around New York City, Charlotte, Raleigh, and put a mic in somebody's face, said, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? They'd say Shark Tank, they'd say Steve Jobs, they'd say raising money, but it's wrong. It's just wrong. The wealthiest of the wealthy, the people who make the real money, almost none of them tried to, almost none of them had a totally.
That's Nick Huber, known everywhere as Sweaty Startup. He's the owner of 11 different companies that collectively put his net worth at over $50 million, and the author of The Sweaty Startup. And he's here exposing the biggest lie in entrepreneurship and revealing the smartest and simplest way to build real wealth.
And he says, Nick, do you consider yourself to be good at sales, and do you like sales? His first question. No, how are you? No, what are you going to order? And he looks at me and he goes, Nick, if you don't like sales, you need to...
This was a question I was going to ask you a little bit later, but since you mentioned it, I don't want to get into it.
I'm getting anxiety just thinking about this.
Now, this interview is packed with stories and advice that will change how you approach building real wealth. You'll learn why you should question traditional thinking on entrepreneurship and all about Nick's sales strategies that seemingly work like magic. And you get a glimpse into the inner workings of a multi-million-dollar acquisition that puts everything that Nick is about into practice. This is Nick Huber. Your life probably moves fastest among just about anybody. And so it's been about a year since we've caught up. And so I'm just curious, in the last 12 months, what sticks out to you as some interesting challenges that you faced and some lessons that you've learned?
Oh man, yeah, it's been a wild ride. I think that just the last 2 years, I'm in a totally different position than I thought I would be in. Some ups and downs and a big deal. I acquired a company on May 1st of 2024. I took controlling interest of a $50 million company and raised $20 million and borrowed $9.3 million from the seller. That's somewhere.com. Our e-cost seg is growing phenomenally fast the last 6 months, which is super exciting. Bolt storage is kicking butt. We got through all of our refis. The real estate market is crazy right now, but we're in a really good spot to grow from here. Yeah, it's been a wild one.
I mean, all of these activities, these deals, everything that you encountered, I'm sure aren't the types of things to where 18 months ago, 24 months ago, you would have sat back and thought, I'm probably going to be doing these things. What hit you by surprise? Like, not just that the thing that happened, but maybe an experience that you had to go through in the midst of those activities.
Yeah, I think if you would have told me at this time in 2020, so 5 years ago, if you'd have told me where I am today, I would have been happy if this was where I am at the end of my career at that time.
Right.
So a lot of good, but yeah, with good comes stress and people and problems. And, it's I think the reason why business is so fun is because it'll humble you. So yeah, it's the highs are really amazing and the lows are low for sure when you're an entrepreneur. But when you have multiple things in the air, it's pretty rare that everything is going poorly at once. So that's one of the positives is that, while it's the slow season over at this company, this other one is growing 130% year over year from a revenue perspective. It's right. It's a blessing, I guess.
That's awesome. So you have this new book that's coming out, Sweaty Startup, How to Get Rich Doing Boring Things, I think is the subtitle that you have. And so I'm curious, why now? Why at this junction in your life, you have a million other things going on. Why did you decide to write a book now? And what's the reason you're telling people? And then I also want to know what's the real reason you're writing the book.
Yeah, so I have been wanting and meaning to write a book for a long time. It released this week. It's out right now. But to be honest with you, I wrote the proposal and sold the book about 2 weeks before Marshall called me and told me he wanted to sell majority interest of somewhere. So sometimes, the timing gods are not on your side. But I committed to writing a book. It's been an amazing process, and it was very difficult and humbling for sure. But yeah, the timing just so happened that right after I got my advance and sold my book to HarperCollins, the biggest deal of my life came upon me, and I couldn't turn it down.
Dropped in your lap.
Take it on.
So you talk about that a little bit in the book, where you basically have this conversation, and you're like, an investor had approached, and it was still Support Shepherd at that point, right? You hadn't rebranded to somewhere yet.
Yep, correct.
They're like, we want to buy it, and you're like, well, no, I'm going to do this. The number that stuck out to me the most of your recounting of that story was the fact that you pulled this deal together in 41 days. Now, I've moved a bunch of times, and I can't get escrow to close on my primary residence in less than 45 days. Like that must have been just an incredible whirlwind of putting together a ton of details.
Yeah. So 41 days was the time that Marshall called me and told me that Andrew Wilkinson put an offer on the table for him to buy 51% and asked me, hey, Nick, like, do you want to sell 51% of your shares? And to me, that was over $3 million and a life change. I wouldn't say like set me for life, but definitely a life changing amount of money for me and where I came from. But it took 41 days from that call to when him and I went under letter of intent, like had the details ironed out of how the deal will work. And we signed that kind of like a term sheet. But then it took, several more months for me to raise the money and actually close on the transaction. So I think he called me in November of 2023, that first conversation. January of 2024 is when we signed our term sheet, and it closed at the end of April 2024. But it was still a whirlwind. I mean, I had to raise $20,350,000 from 39 people, an average check size of over $500,000. So, and I set it up and did it all without a co-GP, without an investment bank. So I learned a lot for sure.
I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know, listening to all these stories that you've had in the smaller scale and then even in the big plays that you do, is that you seem to always try to not do everything yourself because you know when to let things go, right? Or at least you kind of are able to recognize when it has to happen. But your skin is always in the game in understanding like, okay, I've at least done this part of the process myself 1 or 2 times, so I know how it's supposed to happen. And that seems like, is that something that's intentional for you, or is it basically like, this just needs to be done, I'm going to make it happen and go?
Yeah, I'm getting better as my career goes on of like understanding how to structure a deal to set up the most upside for me and to also set up a really good deal for the investors and the sellers and all the other parties involved. But I had an option to, hey, I still hired attorneys. I still hired people to help me with this deal. I just didn't hire an investment bank who wanted to like get part of the upside and share the promote with me, right? So I was up against the challenge of like, hey, before this transaction, I owned 12.75% of a company that was worth about $50 million. I needed to find a way to structure this deal where if this deal goes well and if this company really gets large, I own as much of it as I possibly can. So the deal ended up being structured where 39.25% of it, the equity that I bought from Marshall, was in a private equity tranche. That's where I raised the $20 million. And then 18% on top of that was in a seller note directly to me from Marshall. So, that money that I raised, the blended promotes around 22%. So if I get all my investors their money back, I'll have, another 8% of the company. And then the 18% plus the 12.75, I'll own, a little over 35% of the business if things go really, really well.
Man, what a difference from the original 13.
Yeah. Yeah. Still looking back, man, I wish I would have done the deal a little bit earlier because it's a great business.
Yeah. Well, those crystal balls, if you find one laying around, let me know. So
exactly. But yeah, I think like it's just a testament to everything I've done in life, and everything, almost all the successful people, not that I'm as successful as many, many others, but there's never going to be like permission to do it. There's never going to be somebody who says like, oh yeah, this is perfect timing. This deal has no risk. You're perfectly qualified. This is just everything you've ever hoped for to make you, outsized returns. That's never been the case. Like building that first self-storage facility, I went to 100 people and was able to raise money from, 6 individuals, but the other 94 told me that I was too young, too crazy, and that it wasn't going to work. Went to 10 banks and 9 of them said, like, we're not going to give you this money because who are you to build a self-storage facility? You're 25 years old. And then building the real estate private equity company over time and raising the $40 million to buy $100 million worth of self-storage. Like I wasn't qualified for that. If I'd have tried to go get a job at a real estate private equity firm in Atlanta out of college, they would have told me no because I didn't take the right classes and I didn't have the right family. So I think, yeah, sometimes you got to give yourself permission and take a shot.
I think that's huge. I mean, so many people have said that over the years, and I was just telling my son that very thing this last week, and he's having a tough time trying to figure out where his interests lie, what he wants to do, how he's going to.
How old is he?
He's 18, and he just struggles with the reality of the way job market is. He just doesn't feel like he's like innately like ready to go and just do something, accomplish something. So he's in school, he's trying to figure it out. I tell him, it's 18, you're 18 years old. No one's kicking you out of the house, tomorrow or anything like that. But
has he gotten has he gotten a taste of, going and finding his own customer and making $30 an hour while all of his friends are making, $15 or $16 an hour at their jobs?
He hasn't had that yet. He ran when he was 14 years old. He ran a booth at the farmers market for a local company, and that really pushed him because he had to get out of his shell in terms of being able to talk to strangers and handle transactions and balance the accounts when he was done and everything like that. And so I think he sees it, but ultimately he's just trying to figure out what is he going to do and how can he create value in the world and be rewarded for it. I definitely want him to read your book. But I was just telling him the whole thing is like, you can't sit around waiting for anyone to either give you direction or give you permission. Like it has to come from inside you so that you can move forward doing it. And I mean, you've been a great example of making that happen.
I think the best thing that you could do for him is to get him a taste of sending that first invoice. Like when I got that first, I was 14 when my dad, who's just like me, he's just irrationally optimistic at times, which is a blessing and a curse for us Hubers because we bite off more than we can chew a lot of times. But he, a contractor in Tell City, Indiana, where I grew up, was mowing lawns for my dad's boss, who owned a couple shopping centers. Well, the guy had a heart attack and couldn't keep mowing. He was fine, but he just couldn't keep mowing. And my dad's bright idea was to walk in and tell his boss that his 14-year-old son could take over these jobs. And it was like, I don't know, $400 a week of mowing across like 6 shopping centers in an apartment complex. And like that first day on the job, I was like, what am I doing here? I was hot. It was 95 degrees. I was mowing through trash. There were cars ripping by. And if you were listening to this, it's like on the main drag on, in front of the movie theater in Tell City, like that's the lawn I mowed. You can see it on Google Maps. And I had no business doing that. I was crying at halfway through the job. I'm like, Dad, like I want to go home. I'm 14. This is fucking crazy. And he goes, all right. He put his arm around me, gave me a Gatorade and put me in the air conditioning of his truck and said, Nick, you can quit. You can quit, but not until you send your first invoice. And I never quit because I got that invoice and did some basic math. And like at the time, my girlfriend was working at Subway making $6.25 an hour with no tips. And I could make $28 an hour after fuel and everything on that lawnmower. And I thought about the world in a whole new way. And I haven't had an hourly job ever since.
That's awesome. Solopreneurs and entrepreneurs running online course businesses live the spirit of the sweaty startup. And as a relaunch coach, I help my clients build more profitable brand building course businesses, and I can do the same for you. So if you have an online course and you're looking to increase profits and build a business that serves you, go to craig.tools/startup and you can get access to some coaching that will help you find out if you're ready for your next launch. So I want to talk about the kind of the purpose behind the book again for a second. I'm curious because I also know you have some cool ideas about thinking about sales funnels and how you're structuring your impact. Do you see the book as a vehicle to share your knowledge and educate people or whatever? Because I noticed there's links in there for, how to hire people when you're talking about staffing. And, you even mentioned, I think, an incentive for, if someone hires through somewhere. So was it like a top of a funnel play where you're like, I'm going to write this book and use it as a way to get people into my businesses? Or is it, I have this book, so obviously I'm going to use this opportunity to feed it in to the businesses that I have?
Yeah, the lead magnets were kind of just an idea that I heard from a content marketer of like, hey, the best way to like get your community really involved is like to provide some additional resources, because we were cutting crap from this book. Like I wrote, the first book I wrote was 80,000 words. And they wanted me to be at
that's all.
They wanted me to be at 60.
Okay.
And I could have kept going. Like it needed work. Right. It needed more. I wanted to tell more stories. So I had to cut a ton. And so I put like the business ideas, which is, I could have taken 6 pages and listed all, 600 plus business ideas that I had. But instead I just linked, told them to go to sweatystartup.com/ideas and get the list. So yeah, it's definitely a lead magnet to get people in my community and learn about me. But also, I just had so much to say in this book, and my editors were all over me about about keeping it shorter.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I guess that means there's more books to come then, right?
definitely more books to come, but I think there's also a point where like I got to decide if I'm a media guy or a business guy. And while getting my message out there, and we can talk about why I think my book is so impactful and my message, but like I have to decide, am I going to run and grow these companies into something really big and special because I think I'm a natural operator of businesses, or am I going to try to build a media empire and sell courses and communities and books and whatever else? I want to do both because I think my message is important and I want to get it out there, but I'm definitely focused on growing some pretty large companies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Well, I mean, from the outside, it seems like almost a no-brainer in terms of which one you pick. Like, I don't know how you stay involved in so many different companies at once, and they all seem to be growing. And of course, they each have a slow season,
Well, they're
but
not. Like I'll be honest, like Somewhere, Bolt Storage, and RE Costseg, those are all exploding. Two of the three are over $1 million a month of revenue. The one that's not at $1 million is almost there and growing 130% year over year from a revenue perspective. And our team has grown from 45 to 70 over the last like 3 months. So like those three businesses, I have 11 companies total. I've shut down two.
mm,
Those three businesses are 99.999% of my personal cash flow net worth. It's a unique power law. Like I'm glad I took these shots. And I think some of these businesses do have potential, like AdRhino, Bold SEO, WebRun. Like Titan Risk is the insurance company that I think is going to be really big someday. We have these companies that are starting to grow, the brokerage, nickhuber.com, but then like it's a power law.
right.
It really is. Everybody wants to own a holdco until they realize that like it's just more people, more going on, and it's not as sexy and fun as it seems.
Right, right. All right. So this was a question I was going to ask you a little bit later, but since you mentioned it, I want to get into it. You tell this incredibly vivid story of when you're in the middle of storage squad, and someone hit a car. Someone called at the same time saying that they quit. You had a full truck at that time, and then you had customers calling in moment by moment. And this was like an inflection point for you, the way you describe it, of like,
And I'm getting anxiety just thinking about this.
well, you describe it as like a full-on anxiety attack, panic attack. I don't know.
Yeah. So
And was your business.
I was in a really hard business. Would you like for me to just kind of tell the 90-second?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was in an incredibly hard business. I was doing pickup and delivery storage with 200 plus part-time employees, 6 full-time employees, an incredibly busy season where we're driving box trucks around major cities, sleeping on warehouse floors, working 20 hours a day. It was really stressful. Like delivery season is always really brutal because you got to take back individual packages. And we had 7,000 students, 50,000 plus items across our portfolio. Crazy. I went from Cornell deliveries in early August, then to Penn State, then to Philadelphia, and the last stop's Boston. And so I was at it for 3 weeks of like hell, just like stress, logistics, working a ton. And then all that craziness happens in Boston on the same day. Somebody sideswipes a vehicle. The day before, somebody had put gasoline in a diesel engine, messed up a truck really bad. A couple weeks before that, a guy had ripped a top off of one of our trucks on Sturo Drive. And then that day, like somebody sideswiped the vehicle and somebody like left a vehicle totally unattended in Brighton, Massachusetts with a bunch of customer stuff on it. The guys are just like, screw this, I'm quitting. Hid the keys. Luckily, texted us and told us where the keys were, but just left a truck full of 30 students' items sitting on the side of the road. And the whole time my phone's ringing because I'm the customer service rep, and it just keeps ringing from customers. And it all snuck up on me on the side of the road because I was by myself. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours in a night in 3 weeks, and I'd lost 20 pounds, and I was chafing between my legs so bad I couldn't walk because I was bleeding. And I think I'm very mentally strong, and I haven't had this happen to me since. Actually, I've had some very stressful situations, but like I had a panic attack. Like I called my mom crying. I called my business partner crying. I was on Buswell Street on South Campus at BU, pulled off the side of the road, like having a meltdown in the bushes at 2 p.m.
So you called your business partner, and what did he say to you?
He said, "Nick, we got no fucking choice, so get your head out of your ass and let's go."
Which was the right play. So, but that's my, I mean, I can't imagine having this avalanche of stuff hit you at once. So you pulled Storage Squad through this crucible, and then you've also shut down other companies. How do you decide when it's time to just call it and walk away? And when do you decide and know that the opportunity still exists here and we need to actually just push forward?
Yeah, it's a unique thing, and there's no real answer. I think decision making, it's all about decision making, like what opportunity you go after. It's a learned skill over time. Like you make decisions, you practice, you build the muscle, you watch the results come in, you try to make better decisions, you try to chase better opportunities. I mean, the truth is that some businesses are much better than other businesses. And business is about momentum, and the opportunities get bigger, the opportunities get better, but you still have to say no to about 90% of stuff that comes your way. Or in my case, I'm lucky enough to have this Twitter world and a very strong network where a lot comes my way, and I have to say no to 99.9% of it. So yeah, it's not an easy decision, but I'm also really glad that I've taken on some secondary stuff, because if we never would have built that first self-storage facility, then my life would be totally different. I'd still be in warehouses this time of year.
Right. The book covers a lot of surface area. And the idea being that you kind of look at a bunch of different, or you go against the concept of we need to build this huge thing that's going to change the market, that's going to open up all these new things. But then with your businesses you've had, Storage Squad, you're just like, okay, well, everybody's using clipboards. We're just going to use Google Sheets. Ari Koss said, instead of sending people out physically, we're going to send people out with iPads. And so how is there a system that you use in order to find these inefficiencies and find the opportunities in order to take like really well-run established businesses and make them even better?
Yeah, the book, the main concept of the book is like an official call out on entrepreneurship culture, because you talk to somebody on the street about, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? If you had a little mic and you had one of those cameras and you're walking around New York City, Charlotte, Raleigh, anywhere in America, your town, Denver, near Denver, and put a mic in somebody's face, said, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? They would say Silicon Valley, they'd say new ideas, they'd say Shark Tank, they'd say Steve Jobs, they'd say raising money, they'd say changing the world, they'd talk about Tesla. That is the way that 99.9% of the media portrays entrepreneurship, but it's wrong. It's just wrong. The wealthy people that I know in Athens, in Denver, in Charlotte, in New York City, the wealthiest of the wealthy, the people who have private jets sitting here at Ben Epps, the people who have the $10 million beach house on 30A or in the Outer Banks, the people who play at the most exclusive golf courses in America. Not that is the only form of wealth, but the people who make the real money.
That's the measuring stick for what you're talking about.
For business, yes, yeah. That's the measuring stick. Almost none of them raised venture capital. Almost none of them tried to disrupt a market. Almost none of them had a totally new idea, a new product, new invention, or went to Silicon Valley, raised money, and put sweatpants on. They all started normal businesses doing normal things, and they iterated and innovated internally to outcompete and out-execute the competition. So my book, The Sweaty Startup, is a guide on how to find those opportunities, how to spot those opportunities, what skills you need, from decision-making to delegation to hiring to sales to all the things that are super important to become good at it, to out-execute somebody. So yeah, it's the framework is pretty simple. Like, look for good businesses, look for good opportunities where there's normal people winning. Choose your competition wisely. Like, you can pick to play against, a computer scientist from Stanford with $20 million of venture capital funding who's scored 36 on his SAT and is a genius. You can compete against that. Or you can compete against the guy in Athens who has a fax machine on his desk and also a private jet.
Yeah. Well, in terms of looking at entrepreneurs in different scales, like you have that whole, celebrity entrepreneur kind of thing. You have people who are just running regular businesses, mid to even large size businesses there. And then you have the whole creator, solopreneur lifestyle type of business, entrepreneurship that a lot of people on the internet find themselves in. How do you see the principles within the sweaty startup like mindset and ethos applying to people like that when they're not like thinking about hiring a team and building a large organization?
So I think one of the mind traps and one of the mistakes that entrepreneurs make is they try to think 10 years down the road. They try to read books about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and think that that has any chance of applying to them and what they do. Frankly, if I would have been super interested and excited about entrepreneurship and taking all the entrepreneurship classes and watching Shark Tank every Tuesday, if that would have been me when I was in college, I never would have been excited about moving boxes and making a couple $1,000s. So I'm very thankful that I didn't fall into that trap. So I love the people who are super scrappy and get excited about a small, what on the outside looks like a small opportunity. So it's really, it's kind of a shame that my book is called The Sweaty Startup because everybody thinks they got to be an entrepreneur to read my book. But in reality, it's for people who have jobs. It's for people who are have kids and want to just build an entrepreneurial kind of wealth mindset in their family. Like it's very, very practical for just being a high performing individual, adding value to a company, getting paid well for it, building a career that pays very well, or building a company and building generational wealth.
Yeah. And it's weird how our culture doesn't seem to value these conversations, you know, as you're growing up within the culture of a family. I mean, what your dad did for you in that moment at such a young age is just, it's sad that it's so rare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're kind of taught in every area of life, we're taught to just comply and follow the rules. And the main skill set, like literally we are programmed from a very young age that the answer is in the book. Like flip a couple pages back, study the book, find the answer, look it up, and then write it down, that everything is black and white. And so people don't get opportunities to make decisions. People don't get opportunities to delegate. There is no, like, how do you make the most money in a business? Like you lead other people, you manage them, you delegate. There is no part in normal world for anybody where delegation happens, ever. Like there's no world where a high school kid is sitting in a class and a teacher says, hey, I want everybody to write a 6-page paper, but y'all are sophomores, so go find a freshman to write your paper for you.
Right.
There's no...
Well, I know some kids who do try that, but yeah.
There's no basketball practice where the coach shows up and says, all right, we're going to do some circuits and some weight training today. I want you all to find somebody else on the team to do your sets for you, and I want you to make sure that they do them well. It does not happen. And yes, there's leadership, and I love sports for that reason, but like these things, like sales, for an example, sales is ingrained in every single part of life. Like the whole world is selfish. You have to figure out a way to make other people want to do what you need them to do, whether it's your kid getting in a car or the woman at the bar giving you her phone number to like getting a customer to buy from you. Sales is every part of life, but nowhere in the world do we get practice doing that. So it's really hard to do that if your family doesn't instill those things around the dinner table.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit. You sort of see sales in everything, in everywhere. So what are some ways that you can practice in order to work your way up to the point where you're asking, you know, individuals for $500,000 checks for a deal that you have working on?
I had a wake up, a come to Jesus moment with a mentor in Ithaca, New York. His name's Dan Cohen. He had sold a foundation repair business for almost $10 million. And he was, you know, a fellow of entrepreneurship at Cornell at the time. And I asked him to get breakfast. And I just started a business and I was a big time entrepreneur and I had big dreams and big goals. And we sit down for breakfast and he says, Nick, do you consider yourself to be good at sales? And do you like sales? This was his first question. No, how are you? No, what are you going to order? That's the first thing he said. And I could sense that I was supposed to say I liked sales, but I was honest. And I said, no, I get really uncomfortable in sales. I don't like it. It's not for me. I'm more of a operator and innovator. I picture myself at the whiteboard making decisions. Like I'm going to make marketing decisions. And I just spewed a bunch of bullshit. And he looks at me and he goes, Nick, if you don't like sales, you need to go get a job. And I was like, whoa, hit me like a ton of bricks. It shook me to my core. And he's like, every part of life is sales. Every part of business is sales. You're selling your employees on trusting you with their career. You're selling your employees on doing what you need them to do when they join your company. You're selling your vendors on selling to you. You're selling investors on investing with you. And of course, you're selling customers on buying from you. That is your job as an entrepreneur 100% of the time, is to sell yourself and your ideas to everybody around you. So if you don't like it, go get a job. Right. But then he told me the good news. He told me the good news that you can practice it and you can turn yourself into a great salesperson. So it's the like I have a lot of very tactical tips on sales in that book. I have a whole chapter about the framework I use to sell, to how to build trust, to how to flip the script and how have somebody help sell themselves on you once you've built that trust and told them what you can do. But unfortunately, like, sales is a muscle. You got to go to the gym and lift the weights. You got to practice, and you got to just turn the mindset, because I was a little bit extroverted, but I was really uncomfortable in every single sales environment. But I pounded it into myself and practiced to become a good salesperson. Anybody can do it. So go to the gym and lift the weights.
So my favorite tactic that you mentioned, and I mean, it's not a mind trick, it's not a manipulation, but it is incredibly powerful. And in the sales situations that I've been in, by virtue of just asking questions instead of trying to be the person giving the information and trying to, basically convince people to do something, and showing like just real care for what the other person's trying to accomplish, and then pair that with giving people options of ways that they can engage with me in my business, like, was just a huge like mindset unlock that changed everything for how that worked for me. And the question where you kind of turn it on people and you just say, well, you kind of outline the pitfalls, and you're like, well, how is it you think, why am I a good fit for you? Right. I think it's just an incredible way to get people thinking in a different way. And I'm curious, unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah.
And are there any other types of questions or ways that you encounter people that tend to bring unexpected results?
Yeah. Look, my main goal when I go into every single sales interaction is to add value to somebody's life. And if they feel like they're going to step away from our interaction knowing something, or having value added, or being smarter, or being more aware of a potential problem, or whatever it might be, they're going to build trust with me. So if I can build that trust by, speaking the language, talking about the downfalls, talking about, showing them that I care and adding value to them, then I like to talk about the downfalls. My next step is like, hey, look, like, if I'm selling investors on a deal, like, this could go bad. Like, the interest rates could go up. Like, this is a different ball game. Like, what makes you think, like, this is our situation? We could be stuck in this for a really long time. We could miss projections. Like, and then I flip the script right then. Like, right after talking about these downsides, I'll be like, so Craig, like, what makes you think that this is a good investment? Like, why do you like storage, or why do you like this business? And what makes you think that we'd be a good fit? And then I'd be quiet. And something amazing happens a lot of the time when you reset expectations so that it's not a super stressful relationship and they don't have unreasonable expectations of you. And if they do, they will weed themselves out. And it's great. But more often than not, they start to sell themselves on you. They want to work with somebody like that that's going to add value, talk about the risks, like, be realistic. That's a lost art in salesmanship, because so many people do this old school forcible way to sell of, hey, here's why you should work with me. Here's why I'm the best. Here's why I'm going to be so much better than everybody else. Sign right here. Like, let's go. If you can add value to people's lives.
Was that the ring box that you just showed me?
yeah, it was. Yep. In Algonquin, Illinois. I remember that like it was yesterday.
That's so funny. So for people who don't know, in the book, Nick tells a story about when he goes to buy his engagement ring. He had a super pushy salesman who basically shoved a pen in his hand to try to get him to buy a $5,000 ring.
$7,500 ring. And he's like, go ahead and write up the receipt. Wow. Like, this is a done deal. And his assistant comes over and they start writing stuff up. And I look at him funny and I just walk out.
He was like, it didn't work out how I wanted it to. So I watched one of your recent I don't know how recent it was, but an interview that you had with someone that you brought into. He does sales training and sales leadership for a number of your different businesses.
Probably with Jeremiah,
a
good friend of mine.
Yes. One of the things that you mentioned was that you kind of had to change your mindset a little bit in terms of how you see the sales process throughout the different stages of a funnel. And, you said, I'm really good at top of funnel, got lots of stuff coming in, but you didn't really focus in on the different aspects of the funnel life cycle in terms of sales. Like, what have you learned, say, in the last year or so as you've been working with Jeremiah that's kind of changed your mindset on?
Yeah, I think people think that, we need more marketing, we need better operations, when in many times the lowest hanging fruit is to become better at sales and blocking and tackling and doing what you need to do to increase your close percentage from 30% to 33%. Like doing that, whether it be like right now, we're rebuilding our sales teams in South Africa and we're hooking them up with DSLR cameras and great microphones so that they can build trust and like come across as super professional to their clients. And those little tweaks are massively increasing our conversion rates and adding a ton of value to the business. And another example of this is and I talk about this in the book, I was doing a little bit of consulting. This is 3 or 4 years ago now for a poop scooping business. Like if we take it to the other extreme, and he comes to me and he's like, Nick, I got this great company. You know, I'm doing 500K a year he's like 600 plus K a year of revenue, 300K of profit on a poop scooping business. I got 5 crews running around. Help me grow the company. First thing I did was go to his website and I'm pretending to be a customer. But his sign up form didn't make any sense. The way the copy was written, like it just didn't make sense. Like the pricing wasn't clear. I'm like, okay, we just got to fix this. Like, let's do our best and then put somebody who doesn't know our business at all in front of this form and let's watch them fill it out. And then we watched them fill it out and they were trying to click in the wrong spot. And we're like, no, that's not where you click. You click right here. And then you realize that the way you as a business owner think about your form and your website is totally different than the way somebody off the street does, especially if they're not technologically advanced. So we polished that form and his business just started to rock and roll. That was the one thing we did.
That was the bottleneck. Yeah.
These are some of the examples of just like optimizing every part of the funnel.
So often we're just too close to the source to be able to see truth. I mean, in my business, I help course creators relaunch their courses and earn more money doing it. And oftentimes, like, it's not getting more people to their courses. It's, well, how are we going to offer upsells and order bumps and all that? But then also a big part of it is talking to customers and just figuring out, well, how did you use it? And what did you do with it? And there's so many insights that come from that. And the thing that kills me, virtually every one of my clients, they've never done that step before on their own. They haven't just stopped and asked and delved into that process. It's fascinating that people don't do.
I think the number one thing that any business owner can do right now is put somebody who does not know your business in front of a computer while you're standing over their shoulder and tell them to sign up for your service, but you're not allowed to say a word.
Right.
You'll be sitting back there wanting to scream at the top of your lungs, and then you'll know that it's not clean enough, it's not good enough, and it doesn't make sense.
In terms of parting thoughts, again, bringing us back to the people who are most likely to watch this or listen to this podcast would be creators, solopreneurs, lifestyle business type people. If you were to give 3 pieces of advice to them, what would you say?
I would say, don't stop being excited about making $50 an hour. Don't get too caught up in the dream of buying a big company or raising money or exiting for $1 billion that you are stepping over the opportunities to take these small, steady increases in your company. So don't ever be above that work. I did it for 10 years. My first 10 years in business, I was literally carrying boxes up stairwells. And I'm very thankful for that. I think the second part is like audit your time. And if you're not spending 20 to 30% of your time on the stuff that's important but not urgent, sales, growth, new business, hiring, delegation, if you're not spending, and mainly it's sales, like sales should be the last thing that you delegate. And if you're not spending 30% of your time on drumming up new business, then you're leaving money on the table and you need to do a time audit. And my advice to you is, look, you don't have to use somewhere.com. If you want to, you can email me and I'll hook you up with a discount, but go find somebody internationally for $800 a month, $900 a month to get you 10 or 20 hours a week back so that you can go back to working on sales and growth. And if you just keep doing that over time, and the beautiful thing about the world today that wasn't the case 15 years ago is that you don't have to hire somebody for 50 grand in America. Like, that's very unapproachable to grow your company in the early days, whether it's your media company, your newsletter, your YouTube channel, whatever it might be. Hire around the world, and it is way less pressure and way less stress on you, but you can start to flex that muscle. You can start to build your ability to hire, to delegate, to grow, and focus more on sales. Sales should be the last thing that you delegate. You should continue to do that. I still do it today in my companies, is taking some of these really high value sales calls. A huge mistake I see business owners make is they come to somewhere, they come to me and say, Like, I'm not good at sales. I want to hire somebody to do sales. And I always say, like, have you cracked it? Like, have you made sales work? And they're all like, no. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to fail. Like, those are the hires that fail
Right.
every single time. So sales, get comfortable selling.